Hey, what's going on? Welcome along to the Strategy and Conversions podcast with Jamie and Mark. This is episode 80. That's 80. Well,
Wow.
pushing up to that 100 that we're going after, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't realize it was, keeps going every week, obviously. But yeah, you don't realize. You just carry on doing them and doing them. And then suddenly the figure of 80 comes up. It's a lot of podcasts.
We do it every week. We hit record, and then I say about the episode number and we get really shocked. And it's like, for anyone listening, they're like, surely, you know what episode it is. And it's like, you kind of do at the back of your head. But then when you say it out loud, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's 80 episodes. That's like, the around about an hour each or something like that. So,
Yeah.
80 hours worth of content out there that we've just done for free, just to help people, to help them along and give them that kind of encouragement and insights and, help plug that sophistication gap, right?
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that, weren't we? Yes. The sophistication. Now, that's a good one, actually. Maybe you should explain that, the sophistication gap, because we were just talking earlier on, and it's no disrespect to anybody, but there are different levels you get from different people. Now, you've been in marketing for donkey's years, really, and you've gone through all different stages of it. You've gone through affiliate marketing, all sorts of different marketing strategy, and so you've got a level of sophistication that there are many others who call themselves marketing strategists or marketing people don't have, because they've never experienced it all. And that kind of sophistication comes with experience, but sometimes people can be experienced without really gaining that much knowledge that they've gone through. But it's experience and learning and putting it into practice, having a few mistakes, having a few errors, learning through the challenges and all that kind of stuff, that learning process. And we were talking because it took me, it took me 4 years to qualify as a first of all, as a person. I did a course which included a personal development coach and then a business coach. So I guess it took me 4 years to do the both. And also I've run businesses for a long time as well. So it's that level of sophistication, and it does make me question sometimes when you see, like you made the point, when you see people who have gone on a weekend course or something, or read a book, and now they've become a business coach, and you think, but that sophistication layer is so shallow that as soon as anybody hits actually any real problems, they haven't got answers, or they can't lead your thinking into the right direction that they need to. And that comes with practice, but B, just experience of what works and what doesn't, and that also varies, doesn't it? What works and what doesn't is in different situations. So sometimes something doesn't work in one situation, change the situation, and suddenly it is working. So even that is, you can't say black and white that this definitely doesn't work or this works, because it's always variable.
It's so true. I mean, there's so many different things to discuss just on what you said there. But yeah, like you said, it's not a case of knocking anyone, because look, everyone has to start from somewhere,
Yeah, of course.
And also there are levels of customer, right? So there are levels of customer. I'm trying to think of the right kind of word, but needs, really.
Yeah.
So depending on the type of customer, depending on the type of business they have, depending on what level and stuff like that, they may need different kind of inputs. So you might get someone who has just started out in business, right? And someone who has been on one of these weekend courses has now got some sort of steps to follow, and they can help them go through them steps, and it can help them move along, right? Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome, right? But it's like that. Then when you get faced with a challenge, which is like going something like, how do you move from this amount of money to that amount of money? But how do we scale? How do we grow? And that's what we'll talk about a bit in this episode, that scaling versus growth and stuff like that. But it's then going, okay, what is the best, and not so much the quickest, but the path of least resistance to get into that kind of point. And it's as much as about eliminating risk than it is looking at the kind of positives and stuff. So like within marketing, within strategy and stuff, for anyone who goes, I want to grow a bit, it's like, right, okay, let's look at X, Y, Z. And that will come down to the individual. I was telling you the story about speaking with a mortgage broker, and it's like, okay, they're spending out some money on different kind of advertising and that, but they're going after clients that they don't necessarily want, or they don't work with, or have no real kind of track record of working with these people. But when you actually look at their data, they do have track records of working with different types of individuals. And it's like, well, if you spend all your time going after these, you are going to quadruple your business. Because just the law of averages, or the way you convert these at the minute, if you just get more in, you're going to do more business. Now, that wouldn't necessarily work for a mortgage broker who's in a different location. You know, so if we've got, say, south of the UK and north of the UK, the one in the south, we just went through, wouldn't necessarily be the same thing for the one in the north.
No,
right?
no.
And that comes down to, one, the geographic location, but two, it comes down to the amount of times that the amount of years or stuff like that they've been in business. It comes back down to their experience and their knowledge. It comes down to what they actually want as a business and what their data shows. And like from what I've just said there, you know, anyone listening might just be like, oh, that's quite a lot to think about. It's like, that is the sophistication gap.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and that's the problem. That's the issue, isn't it? It's that when you have this, and we came up with this word, the sophistication gap, is that it's and when we had that we had a person we talked to yesterday, and we're trying to understand the reasons why they wanted the income they said they wanted. And in a lot of cases, I remember when I started out, for example, because as you said, everyone starts out quite green and quite naive. But I remember getting to a stage where I first started my sort of coaching trials, and I'd ask somebody a question like that, you know, what made you come out to that level? And they'd give you an answer, and you'd nod your head and say, right, okay, and you write it down, and then move on. But the sophistication gap is then you go further down, say, well, okay, they come up with an answer and say, well, and what's behind that answer? And then it's like peeling back the onion, and what's behind that answer? And what's behind that reasoning? And what's behind that thought process? Until you actually get them to really question it. And the point to getting them to really question it is not because you want to catch them out, which is, again, that sophistication thing. You're really, really questioning it to see how rock solid they are on it. Because once you know that they're rock solid, and it really is, they think, right, now we can move on, because I know that really is rock solid for you. But once they start to waver a little bit, you say, right, okay, is that really going to work for you? Because if you're starting to waver, when times get really bad, or what some things happen, you're going to waver on just going through with that particular goal, because you're not rock solid on it. But when you're rock solid, you can have all sorts of stuff thrown at you from life and everything else that gets thrown at you. But if you're rock solid, no, I want this because of that, and that's your real rock solid reason, then you're going to carry on with it. And that's, so coaching is not just about getting an answer and asking someone a certain question and moving on. The thought process comes down to how solid is your reason for wanting that? Because a lot of people have taken other people's goals, and this is the whole thing, isn't it, about mindset? Taking other people's goals. Someone says, yeah, you want to have £1 million business. Oh yeah, I'm going to have £1 million business. And they write it down. Great, that sounds good. They put it on the wall, £1 million. But count them. What is £1 million? And how much do you spend in a year? And is that really the amount of money you need or want? Is it just a figure that plucked out of someone's of the air? Or is it a figure that is genuinely, yeah, it comes out to £1 million. I've rounded it, but I would like this £1 million. And they may have taken someone else's goal, but they've analysed it that well that actually it has become their goal. But it's so often it's taking other people's numbers and just making it sound good, you know.
I was thinking this before you said it. I mean, taking someone else's goal, I love that, because that does kind of sum it up. But what I was kind of thinking of there is that, like, you're going off of what success looks like to someone else. So it's like, you know, you kind of want to show that you're successful in someone else's eyes, but actually, what is success in your eyes? And it's usually a lot smaller, because, like you said, look, what is the actual number? It's like, if you take here in the UK, like, do you know what? If you had 100 grand a year, you're probably pretty decent, aren't you? Like, because if you look at it, besides the cost of a house, right, what really else is there that would be cool? I know, you know, prices are always going up and stuff, right? But you know, if you wanted to go and buy a decent car, you know, 50k, right? You know, you could, you know, what else would be a massive purchase? There wouldn't be one unless you were intentional about having it. You know,
Yeah.
so like you said, if it was a case of, yeah, okay, I want 300K because of this, or I want 3 million because of that, you break down that goal and go, okay, I understand why. But that breaking down the goal, like you said, not to catch the people out, but really getting into, like, is this serious? The amount
Yeah.
of times that I've done that and someone's gone from 15 million to 15K,
Yeah. All the way down. Yeah.
you know, and it's like they'll be happy with 15K this year. Like that's all they really want, really, is that they can give up the part-time job that they got, you
Yeah.
know, and spend some more time with their family or something like that. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
where does 15 million come from?
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
there's a coach on Instagram who does 15 million and I want to be like them. Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we just set us, that can be the bigger goal. You know, of course it can. But let's look at the steps then. What is attainable? You know, what can we actually get? And I know we were talking about this with the kind of dumb goals, weren't we? Because
Mm.
when we said about this individual put their number down on what they're trying to achieve in 5 years, and we both were just like, wow. Like, as much as you're saying, look, the big hairy audacious goals, like, you know, absolutely, you know, if a goal doesn't stretch you, it's not a goal, like all that kind of stuff. For me, I'm all about, yeah, look, go big, or go bigger, the whole kind of Grant Cardone thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's look at what we can do. But even we both looked at this number and was like, how is that? How is that going to happen? Where is the money coming from? And
Yeah.
when is it coming to equal that amount? Because
Yeah.
it was a fair amount,
It
right?
was a fair amount, and the whole thing about the big, hairy, audacious goal is about, really for me, is about that goal, or the dumb goal, like we call it the dumb goal, same thing in a way. Is is what looks dumb or big, hairy, and audacious to you now, where you are now. Okay, now, um, for when someone who hasn't even, and I'm not, this is just going off, thinking about things. When someone hasn't even started a business and they want to set up a business, a big hairy goal for them really is to maybe make 100K turnover, because that is still quite substantial. But it's, and if they say, well, that's big hairy and not big and hairy enough, okay, 500,000. Well, once you start going to things, well, I want a 3 million business or a 5 million or whatever business from scratch. And when you're going to do that, what, in 5 years' time? Okay. Now, when you're at a business that is turning over 2 mil, for example, and you say, right, I want a £10 billion business, that is still a stretch, but at least they've got something that is working, and they've got a basis to go on, and it becomes workable because they've seen what works and what doesn't work. But when someone's just starting out, there's so much in business that is going to knock you. Even if you think even if you've run businesses before, every business is different. Every environment is different. Every climate is different. You're still going to find you're going to get knocked from pillar to post when you start out because of the competition and all the rest of the stuff going. Is that the big, hairy, audacious goal has got to be something that not that you feel comfortable with, because that's, let's say, it's the stretch, but it's something you think, right, okay, from where I am now, that is pretty big, and and it's not that is ludicrously big, because when it becomes ludicrously big, it just becomes a figure that will just disappear like a cloud does in the sky.
Yeah, and I mean that whole kind of thing also there is that, I mean, look, we don't know all the ins and outs of what this
No,
person
no,
was looking at,
no.
right? So we can't say, you know, that it wouldn't work. We can't say, yeah, okay, it's an amazing idea or anything like that. But
Mm.
I could probably guarantee that there haven't been any kind of cost factored in. There
Yeah,
hasn't been any kind of contingencies factored in,
absolutely. Yeah,
and
yeah,
to grow at that rate, there would have to be funding that comes in at different stages. And it's like, okay, does your share then dilute, you know, or is it a
yeah.
case of you're paying interest out and stuff like that to people, you know? So it's like there's so much going on within there to get
Mm.
to that kind of. And we'd just say that we're talking hundreds of millions, if not billions, that the person was looking at achieving in 5 years' time, right? Now
Mm.
we've both worked with businesses over the years where we've doubled, tripled, quadrupled. You know, we had even more than that, 10x businesses, right? But then we know when it gets to a certain level, that when it's up in the millions, when it's up in the tens of millions and stuff like that, the growth is smaller.
Yeah, yeah,
More money comes because obviously the amount that you're playing at, but the
yeah,
percentages are smaller. We're not doing. we're not growing the business by 100%. We might be growing it by 10%, but 10% on 20 million, right, is better than 100% on 20K.
Absolutely. And this is the danger with spreadsheets, isn't it? This is where a lot of people, they just have unfiltered spreadsheets. So for some month one, year one to year five, and they just have this exponential growth going on with their spreadsheet, and they just bang, bang, bang. And they'll factor in a little bit of extra cost. Oh yeah, well, this is going to cost a bit more. And but the people that do that don't have any experience of how business can just punch you in the stomach. I mean, I'm not saying this is a kind of a standard thing that happens, but nearly every business, no, that's not true. 3/4 of businesses, maybe 80% of businesses, when the pandemic came, which just held, I can't go on anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. 20% of businesses who'd been through kind of real difficult situations were straight on it. Right, we need to do this, and puts things in place, and actually did quite well out of it. And I'm not talking about the false PPE claims and all the rest of it from the businesses, but the ones that genuinely work that we know of. But there are too many that hadn't really faced any hard times. So they've been sailing along maybe for, I don't know, 8-10 years. Everything was going fairly smoothly. Yeah, the economy hadn't done well in certain places and had a bit of a bash here. But then the pandemic comes, bang. And that kind of contingency plan is, what happens if our income disappears overnight? And that can happen. They've never done it before. They've never experienced it or never had done the planning for it. So when that did happen, income disappearing overnight, wow. It's like they think that's the end of the world. And it's not really the end of the world, but they hadn't planned. I mean, unfortunately, just like the UK government hadn't planned for all sorts of things when it happened. Sorry, this isn't political. But it's just that when you start on a business, one of the things you have to do is look on the worst scenario case that's going to happen, and that comes with again sophistication of business planning and stuff. You look at look at everything that could go wrong, and what if it all went wrong at the same time? Where would that lead me? And then you have a kind of a proper contingency planning for epidemic type proportions. Now that's not being negative, that's being realistic. And a lot of people said, I know, said to me in the past, oh, don't be so negative, that's not going to happen. Yeah, it may only happen once in every 50 years, but it will happen. Wars, all sorts of things. They come along fairly often, and those things crucify any kind of business and stuff going on, or can crucify a lot of them.
You look at in the UK with shops and offices at commercial premises. It's in the energy bills, for 10x, kind of within a short period of time. They couldn't afford it before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and it's that kind of way, and that's the thing. To be honest, mate, like you said there, the whole kind of point of looking at what could go wrong, like you said, it isn't about being negative or anything like that. It's more about looking at the strategy that you put in place.
Yes,
because the things what could go wrong is like you've got your outside factors, of course you have, right? But you've also got your internal factors. Like if you've got a key member of staff, what if they leave?
Yeah,
Well, like, I can't remember where I heard this from. But I actually use this scenario now whenever I'm kind of talking to someone who has like a serious business and it relies on them. Is that they played this game called Dad's Dead, and it was on about like a family business, and they were like the dad was controlling everything. He was the business. It was like, well, what if you die tomorrow? What happens? Like you wake up now, right? Dad's dead, kind of thing. Like the children, dad's dead. What do we do in the business? You've got no processes in place. No one knows what they're doing or anything like that. You have to start putting these things in place as a contingency. Not, and that is worst case scenario that you died. But actually, looking at it as a whole now, it is like, well, you can't even just go off on holiday. You can't go and take some time off if you wanted to. What if you had an illness or something and you had to take a bit of time off? You couldn't do it. Because there's no contingencies in place for anything like that. And then that comes into with your marketing and your client types and all this kind of stuff as well. Is going, right, okay, we want to push this campaign. We want to add market share of X amount within this area moving forward. Cool, okay, but what if that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah,
and
cool.
we got the whole kind of thing, haven't we, with like we've got this new social platform now, Threads, right, which
Oh
is
yes,
a
yes,
copy of
threads.
Twitter and
Yes.
Instagram platform, all through Meta, Facebook, that kind of thing. And I put this post out just saying it won't work. And what I mean by that is like, look, if you were doing social media marketing before and you're not getting customers, right, by just jumping over and using this platform, you're not going to get any customers. It's like you have to do the things right. And if you are getting customers from other platforms, don't neglect it. Don't just jump over here because it looks
Yeah,
like a good
exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
Keep the stuff going. And that probably is the biggest thing, like that. Those levels of sophistication, right? That sophistication gap. The thing that makes me laugh the most is that I've said about this so many times again, not bashing anyone, but you will get the website person saying that you need a new website, SEO,
yeah,
need that, paid ads, all this kind of stuff. All those people will be selling you what they say you need and everything
mm.
like that, right? But the easiest way to make more money in your business is to look at what's been working and do that
Yeah,
again. You
yeah,
know, double down on that, put some more effort
yeah,
into that. You know, and that's
yeah,
how you add growth into your business.
yeah. And that's again another thing we were going to talk about, wasn't it? We said earlier on just in the podcast that growth versus scale. So
Mm,
we talk about that's sophistication, looking at what works, exploiting what works. There's a big thing that we do focus on in this country. I don't think that this country, probably a lot of countries, is we do a SWOT analysis in a lot of businesses. You know, what's your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And a lot of people focus on, okay, you've got weakness here. How can we improve your weakness? And a lot of people look at strengths and your weaknesses and everything. You think, right, what about your strengths? Why? How can you make your strengths stronger? You know, you've got a strength here. Why focus on your weaknesses when actually sometimes focusing on your strengths, the weaknesses you can just delegate to somebody. But these strengths, you know, that's what you do. That's what the business does best. Focus on that, and by focusing on that, you can start to to grow your business, and that's the SWOT analysis for a lot of businesses. But that's just an aside, really. But yeah, growth. We're talking about that. Getting things right is just. Well, I had a big blog yesterday for someone about all the accountancy figures that people need to bear in mind, but I tried to explain them in such a way that people understood them, because they're I talk about growth percentage and net profit percentage and all this kind of stuff. Um, and it's just when you get those figures and you understand them, you understand. And we've talked about this in 3X strategy and all the other things we've talked about in the podcast, is that just tweaking 1% up on your turnover, 1% down on your costs, your fixed costs and your variable costs, can really change your profit of your business considerably. And that is the growth element. But what we're talking about with this person we were talking about yesterday was not growth, but massive scale.
mm,
And that's where you can hit problems. And that's where the whole thing about if you scale your business, but don't think about how you can scale down your costs, you don't make any extra profit than you did when you were down at base A, So,
that's
yeah,
the
that's,
massive, isn't it? You can scale your
yeah,
business as much as you want, but you can end up making the same or less amount of money. And it's
yeah,
like, well, what's the point if you're making 100K on a 200K business, and it's just you, maybe a little bit of help or something like that? Why scale it to 2 million or something like that and still be making 100K? Because even if you came to sell it or something like that, it's not appealing to anyone. They're not going to pay the 2 million or the multiples of it,
no,
because they're going to
no,
come back to that 100K. You know,
mm,
and it's like, and if it's taking, if you're part of that resource and making 100K, then really there isn't a business there that can be sold,
no, that's
because
right.
you're in
Yeah,
control. And that kind of growth and scale, then, so that's what we said we would talk about and explain a bit more. Now, I look at it in a certain way. We haven't spoke about this, so you may have a different opinion, right? But I always kind of look at growth being like, okay, like how do we grow the business, right? So how do we add more revenue to what we're doing, right? So we might have a business and it's got several employees, something like that. We're making 1 million, or that kind of thing, right? We want to make 1 million too now next year, right? we've got the capacity within our business now that we can bring it on. How do we put different growth models in place to bring more customers, maybe improve acquisition, like you said, maybe changing costs and stuff? Okay, we get to that point. And that's how I see growth, right? And that
Mm.
growth can be steady, adding on, year on year
Yeah,
and stuff like that. It could be that, it comes in different stages, maybe 3 year periods or something like that to kind of grow even bigger. So it could even be like doubling, in 3 years' time and how you build up to that. Whereas when we look at scale, then we're looking at, okay, that we need to take another 5 people on to get to
yeah,
this level, or we need to open up another location, or we need to add in different arms to the business that are, going to produce X amount of money, and we need different facilities and stuff like that to do it. And that kind of scale, you hit it on the head, in different podcast episodes when you say getting your business franchise ready.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
you get it to that stage that you could just go and say, yeah, okay, in a different part of the world or a different part of the UK, we're going to move it into that area. Someone else is going to run it, and it all works without your input. It
yeah,
works in a way where it is self-sufficient, but it all kind of combines then to how you want to scale the business.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really, really, if it depends what kind of business you want. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of people just want a lifestyle business. They just want to have that little bit of growth and just be taking a certain amount of income each year, maybe increasing it. Maybe it's they're taking it, I don't know, say 100K one year, maybe it's 150K the next year. They're still just taking they're taking a large proportion of the profit as the income. That's fine. I get that. People have lifestyles. Um, but if you want to seriously grow your business, as this lady did yesterday, and take it from quite a low, quite a low a threshold where they are now in turnover, and just exponentially 50 times, for example. Now, as you said, we're not saying that's impossible. Um, it's that will be a massive amount of work, but and probably there'll have to be a lot of and at the end of it, maybe you get to say where it's selling. But the whole point is you have to start making your business franchise ready before you can start scaling. Because if you try to scale your business and you're still in the growth mode and you haven't really optimized costs, you haven't optimized your procedures, and you haven't optimized your processes, and you haven't got a kind of McDonald's model where anybody can flip a burger and you get all the sales come in. Do you want extra fries of that? Bang, and they have that kind of thing, that kind of result at the end. If you haven't got that, where you fry a burger for however many seconds and all that kind of stuff, down to a T, you're going to try and scale your growth company, and things are going to go wrong, drastically wrong. They're going to go wrong quite quickly. So when we say get into franchise ready, it means that you've got that business in such a great condition that actually, if you wanted to sell it tomorrow, somebody would be interested in buying it because they think, wow, it works. It works without you. It just works like this. You don't have to be there, and it will still generate a profit. And that's when you got to that stage, that's when, like you said, you can say, right, I've got a great model. We can now go and put this into Vietnam, for example, and know, bang, it'll work. And we can then go and put it into Canada, bang, and we know it'll work. And that's where the scaling comes in, because you've taken the time first to get it ready to scale, as we said, franchise ready. Because it could be ultimately you think, I can't be bothered, I'm just going to sell it and start again. Sell the company and do something different. But the whole point is you've created that company that is not reliant on you, is not actually reliant on any particular person, but it has a process that works. Because while that company is still reliant on somebody's expertise or somebody's expertise, it's a flawed model in the sense that if that person, dad's dead, if that person disappears, the business not collapses but shakes badly.
Yeah, definitely. And so that could be exactly the same thing as if a key employee leaves.
Yeah, yeah,
It could be exactly the same as if, something outside of your control, an outside factor, does that. What happens if you are creating some sort of woodwork or something like that and the price of timber goes up?
mm.
It's like, things which are out of your control and
Yeah,
stuff like that. There are so many factors there that okay, like how could things impact the business? But like you said, when it comes down to that kind of franchise ready thing, you've got deals in place. We were talking about how, we're talking about like bigger companies, how they will club together to import steel.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can get it at a cheaper amount and stuff like that. And like when you get to that level, there will be a key person within that organization that's just their focus, just on that cost
yeah,
reduction or
yeah,
that kind of investment side. But when we come right back down to the say like the smaller level, maybe people just in business on their own, right? Like you said, growth versus scale, whether people just interchange those words and really they mean growth and stuff, but they say scale. Yeah, I think that happens a lot.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But what you get there is that, like you said, if things aren't right, with the foundations aren't right,
yeah,
and you look to build or you look to grow. So even that kind of growth part, forget scaling for the minute. Even that growth part is if you're trying to grow without those foundations in place, you are
mm,
going to get to a point. And unfortunately, we have met lots of those people.
yeah,
They were happy within their business. They've decided to grow, and that they've grown how they kind of operate on their own. They haven't turned into a business owner.
yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there. I think is you've got to transfer that mindset to business owner, a business owner, or even a corporation owner. It's not just you now. It's you're owning a business, a company, a corporation that has to run if you weren't there. And I always call that the Jenga tower thing. Where the Jenga tower is if you haven't got a decent foundations in place, and you say, right, okay, now we're going to scale, and up the tower goes, and all of a sudden it gets really wobbly because the foundations aren't there, and eventually it collapses. Um, and it's the same. I always tell people to start creating, even if they're sole traded with a single person, create your company as if it was a corporation. So who makes the decisions? Is there a board of directors? What are the processes? What are all the policies you have in place? What are all the bits and pieces that need to function if the board of directors don't meet every month? So it carries on. So you got you may be doing all these jobs. Don't get me wrong. When you start off as a sole trader, you're and micro business, you're probably doing most of these jobs yourselves. But what you do is you set up your business as a corporation, because not only does that help you to think about where the business needs strengthening, but you know that once you start coming in, if you this is talking about growing and then scaling. If you get to the stage where you are making an income, you've got a bit of a surplus in your company now, and you can start investing in something. You think, right, okay, so you look at this map, right? What do I need first? Bang! I need a. In a lot of cases, people say I need a PA or VA because I need this to happen, or I need a bookkeeper and accountant. That's where they think that right, I can delegate that, I can keep that in my business, but those are the most important jobs. And then they start and they carry on. And then when they make a little bit more cash, they think, right, I need to build a stronger sales team or to help them out. So, once you have that structure in place, uh, which can be quite a rigid structure, which may not suit a lot of people, but the whole point is a structure that you can build your Jenga tower up on, and it won't wobble because the structure is nice and wide. It's got everything you need in it, and you can start plugging bits in as the money as when you're in the sole trader position. As the money comes out, you can start plugging those things in, and that's just going to make your business grow faster anyway, but also get it to that franchise ready approach. You get someone who looks at systems. That's all they do. They look at how we can make this system better. How can we make it 5% more efficient than it is now? Again, the buying model. How can we make sure we have a consortium that we buy our wood, for example, as a consortium of people, so we buy it at the best price we possibly can? How can we reduce our costs of sales if it's a manufacturing or even we're selling any kind of product, um, and it's the cost of sales, but that whole thing about the actual costs of fixed costs and variable costs, so the rents and the insurance, or the variable costs that go up and down as you grow your business. Those are the things that catch you. The fixed costs normally stay the same, but it's the variable costs that can fluctuate. Those are the ones that you really want to cut down as much as you can, so that you don't get that fluctuation. So you understand every year almost, certainly every month, a quarter, what you're having to spend in your business to be able to produce this amount of income. Because once you understand that and you know you can keep it at a reasonable level, then you know you can just increase your turn, increase your sales. Those costs are going to stay fairly good, and then you've got what I call the profit gap. Your costs stay at one line, which isn't going up too much, whereas you push your turnover up, and all of a sudden you've got a profit gap, and that profit gap then is where people really, really motor, because that's when the business really starts to take off.
Exactly that, mate. I mean, so many sort of golden nuggets within what you just said there. It's mad. All that stuff just makes so much sense. I can remember actually one of our earlier podcast episodes. You explain that as you need to wear lots of different hats within your business.
Yeah.
And it's like you need to take one hat off and put another hat on, and that goes against a lot of the kind of advice that you hear out there, especially like business coaches and stuff like that. You hear them saying, oh, you don't want to be doing that because you're not a business owner. You don't want to be doing this because, you can't take a holiday or something like that. And it's like, in the beginning, we do. In the beginning, we do have to do these things. It's our business at the end of the day. We need to make sure that it's solid before we can grow to the next level, before we can start expanding. And like you said, that kind of growth model there, I mean, in some people's eyes, I mean, that growth model may look a bit boring, right?
Yeah.
But the boring businesses are the best ones. They're the ones that last around. They're the ones that you have more control over, and you can decide and stuff. Now you can speed up the process from kind of like growth to scale, and you see this sometimes where you might have someone has a small business, and an investor comes in, right? And an investor who has been there before. They know what they're doing, and what they do there is they bring in expertise.
Yeah,
so they bring in the right expertise, and they put the right stuff in place. That means that they can go through that growth period a lot faster and move into scale because an investor wants their money back, right? That's what they're looking at there. You also see that a bit with the kind of entrepreneur kind of approach as well. So you might see an entrepreneur might be like, right, okay, look, grow as fast as we can. So then either flip the business or, roll it up into another business or whatever it is. But if you look at that, they do exactly the same thing. They've been there before. They know about how business works. They bring in people to do the job for them, So if you have that luxury where you can, to what 300k is on the side, I'm going to bring in £300, 300k's worth of talent and software, to create a £3 million business in 2 years' time. Yeah, you can do that, But if you don't have 300k and you're starting out and maybe you have 3k, unfortunately, you have to wear the hats. You have to do all the kind of bits and pieces to then look, where do you bring in, small bits of expertise? And that goes back to, I guess, what we were talking about at the beginning of this episode as well, is about that sophistication gap. It doesn't mean that maybe you need 100k consultant to come in. It might mean that you just need, a bit of advice from an accountant or something like that. But it's getting the right guidance and stuff like that at the right level and the right sort of the right places that you need it. So if you are going to be doing your books yourself, right, you can't afford a bookkeeper right now, but maybe you can afford an hour with a bookkeeper or a course or something like that that's going to teach you how to do it properly.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Something I was thinking, and it's something you said earlier before we actually got on the call, and it's go back. Yes, you have to wear when you first start out, unless you have a huge investment and you can start having this big company immediately, which it can be a disaster. I don't know many people do that. You have to wear all those hats, but that is a learning process, because if you start to wear all those hats and you're doing your bookkeeping, and as you're doing your bookkeeping, you think, I would love a report that tells me this, or something that shows me that when you actually decide that eventually you've got the money, I'm going to bring in a bookkeeper or an accountant, say, right, this is what I want, and I want these reports, because you've been there and you've done it, and you've seen what you can get from a standard maybe bookkeeping system. And you say, but I want something better. I want something that tells me this. I want something that tells me that. So when that person comes in, you've already got a kind of a job description and a process already lined out. If you've been going through sales, for example, that's the other thing in your business, and marketing, you think, I really want this to happen or that to happen. Again, and I need this process to be smoother. So you've done it. Now, you may put things in place and you may not have created it exactly as you want, but you know what you want. So then when you get the chance to bring someone in, you say, I want this. And not just so I want you to do my sales and marketing, because that can mean everything. But when you say, I want you to do my marketing and sales this way, because I know that I'm pretty sure this works, and we do this and this and this, and this is what then gets put onto, yeah, this is the cost involved of it, everything. Because you've been through that, you're aware of it. It doesn't mean to say you're going to be doing it forever, but because you're aware of it, you can start hiring people and tell them exactly, or not tell them, but give them your experience of what's happened in the past. Because the whole point of hiring people on, and this is another, I think, a fear factor for a lot of people, is you want to hire people into positions that are better than you could do them, because they might have a specialist, and then allow them to come to you with ideas of how it can be improved, rather than you say, no, you've got to work this way. And if they say, well, yeah, we could do it this is, in my experience, but no, got to work this way. You're a terrible business owner for that. Whereas if you listen to them and say, no, that's a good idea, we could do that, and listen to them, because those people, feel more listened to, get a vested interest in working in your company, feel that they've contributed something, but all of a sudden they're helping you build, and they're helping you build what's going on. So you can use their expertise. And that's, again, a lot of people are fearful about taking on employees because they just think they want somebody as cheap as possible. But that's not often is that the case. You want someone with a bit of nous about what they're doing, who can help and get you to grow.
Again, so many nuggets in what you just said. I was close to saying, look, let's wrap up this episode, but so many things there. I think one thing to kind of touch on, and I think there is a line that you have to be careful of, right? Because like you just said there, that if you're bringing in employees and they have expertise, it's important to extract that expertise from it, right? From them. And what I see a lot happen is that a lot of business owners, they get swayed by a person providing a service, right? So so that you've got the employee, but say you're going to outsource it, right? So what you might get there is it coming back to, like I said, you get the website person, the SEO, the paid ads, the anything and everything, sales trainer, whatever, and they will say you need this, you need that, and the problem is that if you listen to them, they may take you off track, not intentionally or anything like that, right? They may think they know best, but they're not looking at your business. They're not looking at the goal. They're not looking at the targets. They're not looking at exactly what it is that you want. Now, what you want to have, what you want in place. And I sound a bit biased saying this because this is my expertise, right? But the whole kind of point is that you want your strategy in place, that you know that from where you are now to where you want to get to, how you do that. And then you get to bring in the expertise to provide it, but also you can get the input. So if you were to go to, a graphic designer, and you say, right, okay, look, we want a set of presentations and a set of social posts and stuff like that, because we're doing X, Y, Z. If they come back and say, oh, I don't think you should do X, Y, Z, you should be doing ABC, you can say, no, graphic designer, I want X, Y, Z. Now I want your input in there on how that can be better and everything like that. That's where your expertise counts to me. But we already have a bigger strategy on what we're trying to do. Now, if we went with ABC over X, Y, Z, what happens there is that it's not congruent within our strategy. We might be different in the left-hand part to the right-hand part and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we've got the strategy in place, and then we can take those people in, and then we can obviously vibe off their expertise. Because what you get there is, it might be, you get expertise that go a lot deeper as well. And again, that sophistication, that sophistication gap. We were saying before, weren't we, about that kind of, using that as a kind of word. We didn't think about saying it. Let's get back to levels of sophistication. But the whole kind of point there is like, they might be able to come back and they can say, look, from all these graphics that we've done over the past 6 weeks, we're seeing that these two with these colors are actually doing a lot better. Maybe we should create some that just focus on these colors for the next month and see how they go. Excellent idea. Yeah, let's go with that. But if they come back and they say, we reckon that you should just do something completely different, well, why is that? The amount of times as well, mate, that I've worked with businesses where I've kind of sat between them and, some sort of outsource or some sort of company or something like that. And the company has put together a bit of a pitch to the business owner. And then it's like, right, do you reckon we should do this or not? And I'm listening to their pitch or something, and I'm just going, okay, but can you answer these questions? Like, where does it add more money to us? You know, when does it add more money? And how does this continue? Because it's like, look, if it doesn't, if what you're talking about is so great, but it doesn't add anything to our business, then why not? I mean, I think SEO was probably the biggest one. You know, there's a few different clients that I worked with, and an SEO company came about. I was doing all the big pitch, like, yeah, you need SEO, you need SEO. And it's like, right, okay, how much more money will this bring our business? It can't answer it, you know. Okay, well, when will we see, you know, an increase in income? We can't answer that. But when will we see an increase in the amount of visitors? Well, we can't answer that either. So why do we need it? You know, when do we need it? It's like, will it ever add more money to our business? You know, now knowing obviously SEO and stuff, I know it's a great investment. You know, it's already going on, you know, within the business anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like this person now is putting that pitch on, but it's like you can't answer the simple questions of how it's going to add to it. So you can either do it how we want it to be done, or you know, you don't. It's like it's simple as that, because we've already got the hierarchy and strategy and stuff. So again, kind of looking at that, it's important that when you're looking at growth and scale, is that you bring the right people in to get the right expertise in the right places, and you're not listening to everyone.
Yeah, you listen to the right people. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's hard to get those right people, or to know who those right people are. But again, that comes down to conversations, doesn't it? And the amount of networking, the amount of conversations you have with people. I mean, as a business owner, starting out from scratch, what you can't really be is an introvert. You've got to get out there and talk to people, because if you're an introvert, you never are going to talk to enough people to know who is the best at what they do.
Yeah, I think so many people want that today, don't they? Is that they want the kind of bedroom millionaire kind of thing. They never speak to anyone and make a load of money, you know? It's like we all want that, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it comes back to me. The more conversations you have, you know, the more opportunity there is out there.
Yeah.
And we took, I think the best podcast episode we had, as in like the most listens and everything like that, was the one around where we said that the fortune is in the follow-ups, and we explained about following up with people. Now that can even just be that initial kind of re-engagement where you just kind of check in with someone, how you doing, you know, and start that conversation off, because there will be people out there sat there thinking, I need some help, I wish someone would just reach out to me.
Yeah,
you know. And it's like you always think the opposite. You think, I don't want to badger someone, I don't want to be touting work, but really they're sat there going, I'm struggling with this,
I'm struggling.
I don't want to openly admit it's out there. I'm not going to put on social media that I'm looking for someone to come in and help my business survive, but I'm sat here struggling. If someone was to slide into my emails or DMs right now, I'm going to say, let's talk about it.
So the fortune and the follow-ups, what episode was that for our listeners?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Can we get that one?
I think the easiest thing to do there is either wherever you're listening to the podcast or watching the video, you know, just do the search on our channel and you'll find it. But I should be better with this, because I do reference some podcast episodes. I think we've done 80, right? I mean, this is the thing. There's so many there, and like I said, those are about an hour, and there's little snippets within there. There's all kind of gold stuff, you know, dotted about. Let's wrap up this episode now.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe we'll follow on with scaling, because we covered growth quite a bit. Touched on scaling, but yeah, we're talking that in the next episode. So let's wrap things up there. Mark, anything you want to cover?
I just think it's going back to the original the premise we were talking about. It's just which we'll talk about later on, the scaling thing. But there is that difference between growth and scaling, and just be careful which one. Growth is manageable by a very, very small company, but scaling, you need to get some much more help to actually start doing that, but keeping those costs down as low as you can.
Absolutely. Mark, let's wrap it up there. It's always been a pleasure.
Indeed. Great for listening. Thank you very much.